Okay, I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, so I'm just gonna come right out and say it. What was up with SNK's localization since forever? Like, why were they even allowed to cook? From their very first smash hit Ikari Warriors in 1996 to their last few releases in the early 2000s, there's not a single game in SNK's rich retro history that doesn't have some type of quirk or grammatical error. This is in stark contrast to their contemporaries such as Capcom or Namco, who, while having their own bad translation snafus throughout the 80s and 90s, at least weeded most of those out by the turn of the century. Not SNK though, so sit back, relax, and get out your autocorrect, because we need to talk about SNK's insane localizations. Since we need to establish a base here, we might as well start with the aforementioned arcade smash hit, Ikari Warriors. While most of this run and gun is bereft of text, upon saving the towering titan that is your CO, you are greeted with the following message. Congratulations! You have rescued Colonel Cook and received 1 million points. Continue to fight hard and bring freedom to the people you protect. Good luck and good hunting. Okay, well, this is fairly typical for 1986. Hell, this isn't even the first or third time I've seen congratulations misspelled in a video game.
What?
But it also seems pretty literal and direct, and is most likely what SNK's Japanese staff intended to get across. The home version for the NES was quite stripped down from its arcade brother, but its ending has the same gung-ho spirit, but the text is distinctly different. You have accomplished the mission. You are the very prevailer that protect the right and justice. I would express my sincere thanks to you. Take good rest. Okay, that's just as awkward and was clearly translated without a proofread, but at least everything is spelt correctly. There's progress here. The arcade sequel, Victory Road, however, injected a bit more personality into the mix. You have fighted well to the last stage. Thanks. All devils have gone to the world where they should stay. Thou who art selected, it is through your courage that the peaceful world is coming back. Your names will be written indelibly forever on everyone's hearts. While that's also straightforward, albeit strange, it feels like it was translated by someone completely different, and perhaps not on SNK's original Japanese staff. I doubt they would have gone with thou who art and indelibly, as that carries way more flourish than what you'd typically see in an 80s arcade game. Curious. Business doesn't really pick up, however, until 1991's Fatal Fury, a game that was in development before Street Fighter II released and was actually headed up by former development staff who worked on the original 1987 Street Fighter. The whole purpose of Fatal Fury was to push story and character motivations in a cinematic late 80s style, which of course meant far more text. Every time you win a few matches, it cuts to the big bad, Geese Howard, who is monitoring your progress, and things start off pretty conservatively with, "He looks very strong." The following cutscene then goes on to say, "Hey, get the information from him." Now, I'm to assume here that Geese meant to say something along the lines of, "Hey, get me information on this guy," as in your chosen playable character. So, yeah, that's confusing, but things become more unhinged with, "I will never forgive you. You disrupt my plan of attack. I'll beat you like your father 10 years ago." This seems like just the fastest, most literal translation that could have been done. It should have been something like, "You're ruining my plans. I'll beat you just like I beat your father 10 years ago." You are then hauled in front of Geese and thrown at his feet, where he exclaims, "Holy cow! You disturbed my plan again!" After the final showdown, where Geese goes curse splat, we're then told February 16th, 1919.
October 16th, 1919? Wait, what?
Fatal Fury doesn't just represent SNK making a bold challenge to Capcom. It also kicked off a massive flurry of releases in the arcade and the home with more and more questionable localizations. And if you thought Fatal Fury was already weird, its sister series, Art of Fighting, which released just a few months later, quickly turned the dial up to 11 and beyond. Art of Fighting 1 has just as, if not more, story than Fatal Fury, but aside from Mr. Big saying you need to thin the karate dojo, there's nothing too egregious here. Art of Fighting 2, however, which continues the story exactly from when the first one left off, is a whole other beast. Here's a few examples. Yes, the guy with the big beak was Ryo and Yuri's father. I Am Woman, Feel My Kick and Moan, which wonderfully predates the kinky pleas of Step on My Throat, Mommy, from the fans of today. Please, let me off easy this time. Not! That 90s as hell English slang must mean that by 1993 and 1994, SNK's US division was taking over the translation duties, or at least adding their own particular flavor. I mean, do you think the original intent was for Jack to say, "You really know how to frost my cake, sonny, eat my shoes, bug," or King in a very, very, very out-of-pocket moment going, "I didn't come here to listen to your pickup lines, eunuch." What the fuck? This all climaxes with Mr. Big having a war of words with the game's hero, Ryo Sakazaki. He inexplicably says, "Let's say I know which holes in which to put my pegs, pal." Like, no, I'm sorry. Somebody at SNK's US office must have been taking the piss here. There's no way that was the original dialogue. That's not even the weirdest of the weird innuendos, though. In the game's final cutscene, young Geese Howard is made aware of the actions of one Jeff Bogard, who then orders his death by saying, "Take care of him. Rub him out." To which Geese's creepy butler replies, "Rub him off, got it." What the hell, SNK? The peak of all of this, whatever this is, comes in the form of Fatal Fury Special, which was basically the super turbo or ultimate version of Fatal Fury 2. Here, every single line of dialogue shared between every combination of characters is just absolute clown shoes. "Wubba wubba, I'm in the pink today. What a tough. I think I used about 61.5% of my strength."
"Eat my power pole, pansy. A nice treat after a long sip."
"Hey, I never scratched myself there. Stop it, imitating Melonhead. From today, just call me number one." Sweet Buns is fine too. "Die like your father, you pin-headed son of an ice cream maker."
But your father's dead.
But no one is more consistent with this silly shit than Wolfgang Krauser. The Earl of Stroheim towers over the others with such nonsense as, "Blood is thick, but syrup's thicker. Think about it. Challenge me, you hot spunky kid. I hate spunk." Like, what the shit? Krauser utters something similar to Lawrence Blood's "What a Tough" by Krauser saying, "What a tough." But fans have since directly translated from the original Japanese, which produces the far more accurate, "Naturally, there seems to be no one who can satisfy me," which of course refers to the lack of everyone else's fighting skill and not an inappropriate lewd allusion. There's also been other fan translations of the dialogue from SNK's many other fighters, which further strengthen the argument that someone was smoking something somewhere when it came to the localization. Given what these changes were, it really seems like that someone must have been working in SNK's US offices or was a Westerner living in Japan at the very least. In The Last Blade 2, which is the fucking GOAT by the way, Zantetsu, a very stoic character of few words, simply states, "I can't kill the weak," in Japanese, but growls the almost identical but far less intimidating, "I can't kill weenies." One theory as to why SNK's work in this area was so quirky, yeah, let's go with that, comes from a GameSpot piece from 2004 on the history of SNK. In it, it stated that since SNK was pumping out so many games during the 90s, the localization department had very little time to translate them all, so the first pass was often the only one, with no one really paying attention to the finer points of the English language. My best educated guess here is that there are 1 or 2 staff members max who were in charge of localizing every single title, with one of them getting really cheeky with various in-jokes, innuendos, and general silliness. Oh, those big sillies. This of course then extended to the King of Fighters series, which had yearly entries and tons of characters, which resulted in lots of examples of fighters talking shit when it really didn't fit their personalities, such as Iori Yagami actually saying the words, "Gnarly, let's do it dudes," to Ryo calling people dweebenheimers, to K-Dash, arguably one of the coolest characters in the series, using such badass language as Piffle Paffle. Yes, Piffle Paffle. Is he a nanny from the 19th century? We also can't forget good old Samurai Showdown, and especially the iconic intro from the second in the series. Long, long ago, there were a man who tried to make his skill ultimate. Because of his bloody life, it's no accident that he was involved in the Troubles. This to me just smacks of a rush translation that wasn't touched up in any way by US staff, but the later Sam shows certainly were. You no-hoper? Fuck off! Useless! Like fighting a turd! Major disappointment, dweeb! A stone in my path is subject to my foot up its ass.
Shut up, bitch!
Most baffling of all, SNK got through the first 3 games fine with the iconic victory screen when you've landed the last blow in a round, but for some reason in Samsho 4, Amakusa's Revenge, it's prominently displayed as Victory, like the L is even close to the R on the keyboard. Best of all, this wasn't even fixed for the home release on the Western Neo Geo, because of course it wasn't. All of these issues continued throughout the 90s and into the 2000s, from major releases down to handheld spin-offs. In SNK vs. Capcom Match of the Millennium for the Neo Geo Pocket, there's such classics as Terry's "God, excrement, I'm surrounded!" and Ryu's "I'll bust you like a nut." Even Garo Mark of the Wolves wasn't safe from said eclectic style. While the intro and most win quotes come out relatively unscathed, sub-boss Grant's cutaways are filled with just strange scenes like, oh God! Come to me, oh mighty On! Or the final boss, Kane, calling Rock Howard Geese's loin seed. Terry then calls Grant a weenie. Kane brings back the pin-headed insult. I love how Mark of the Wolves is one of the best 2D fighters ever made, but SNK still made sure to mess up its localization. We have to end on the company's final game, or their final game of the 2000s, and now it's the last game they made before their first bankruptcy, okay? Due to the arcade scene seeing a steep decline everywhere except Japan, and the untold millions they lost on the expensive Hyper Neo Geo hardware, the company was essentially closing its doors near the end of SVC Chaos's development. But even though the game could have used more polish across the board, its localization was the classic SNK fans would come to love. But this time, Capcom characters were in on the joke. If you thought the 1 or 2 guys that were on staff didn't really get the personalities of most SNK fighters, well, they really didn't get the Capcom ones. There's Akuma's milestone line: "Defeating you takes less effort than smacking a baby. Not that I'd ever do that." Or his underappreciated,
"Just try to defeat my murder wave, ya ponce."
Kim, who I thought was a consummate professional, gets exceedingly unprofessional with, "Evil is as strong as good. Stop worrying, Boobala. I'll rehabilitate you." Boobala? What the? Wait, that's an Addams Family thing? But nothing is more surreal than the following win quote from the Eternal Warrior Ryu, which simply reads as, "You can't be finished. Stand up, you simp." I have to assume this was supposed to be a short form of simpleton. Like, it has to be, right? It has to be. They couldn't have known. There are so many other examples of all of this. There's a ton of fighters from SNK I didn't even touch, like Savage Rain, Kazuna Encounter, Ninja Masters, all the world heroes. It's a never-ending dark hole of poor syntax and even poorer spelling that hopefully I can plug up with my pegs someday in a future video. So if you'd like me to perform that pegging, please let me know in the comments below or hit me up on my social media. Oh, and since it's fighting game adjacent, do check out the makeshift campaign for the Matt McFighter plushie, which literally ends today in a few short hours. Thanks for watching, Dweebenheimers, and I'll see you next time!